many KZN residents have lost their homes and belongings in the floods that have ravaged parts of that province. The Ombudsman for Short-Term Insurance says, unfortunately, due to the floods, many people have also not insured their belongings. So for more on the way forward for these individuals, let's bring in Peter Nkhuna, who is a senior assistant at the Ombudsman for Short-Term Insurance. Peter, it's great to see you. Thanks very much, as always, for making time for us. I mean, interestingly enough, the Ombudsman for Short-Term Insurance last year released a report saying, in part, that you expect an uptick in storm-related claims. But did you anticipate the calamity, the scale of the disaster that we're currently seeing?
Good morning, and good morning to the listeners. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody can ever really anticipate the scales that we are talking about. I think if one looks at the changes in weather patterns that have been happening over the years, it's getting clearer and clearer over time that we are moving into the unknown. And from that perspective, it will always be difficult for one to anticipate what may or may not happen.
Yeah, and for the kind of work that insurance companies do, a big task for them is to try and predict what, the future may look like in order to, mold their policies and be able to, offer the kind of package and offerings that make sense. How is this complicating the work of insurers and, by extension, your work as the Ombudsman?
Well, it makes it difficult in that a lot of times insurers would rate risk based on data collected over time, and it would then be possible through modeling to predetermine what is likely to happen and therefore match the premiums and the risk profiling to the data that has been collected. Now, if you find that there's a bit of a difference between what you can predict and the real outcomes, it throws off your modeling, and therefore you pretty much have to start from scratch trying to build up on the new information. And if the new information isn't even consistent, then it does put you in a bit of a tough situation. And unfortunately, that could also entail some hardship on the part of the consumer, in that it's likely that insurers may then opt to rather be safe than sorry, and on the side of higher premiums than lower premiums as a result.
One can only imagine the kind of claims that insurers are receiving, at least for those who have clients in KwaZulu-Natal. There are obviously going to be disputes about what is and isn't insured. I mean, help us, walk through some of those complexities from your vantage point in a context where I'm sure you've already received some of those disputes.
Thank you for that. I think the main big areas of insurance that would be relevant would be your homes getting damaged, your household contents getting damaged, your cars getting damaged, and of course people who have businesses will also suffer losses as a result of the inclement weather and the floods that have been experienced. Now, for each respective type of cover, there will be peculiarities that one would have to bear in mind. Let's start, for example, with your home insurance, starting specifically with the building. Main things would be that it is hoped, at least, that consumers would have kept their properties in good state of repair, meaning that properties were maintained, particularly roofing, in the context of rain and storms. Because if it is found that your property was not well maintained and that the loss that was suffered was mainly due to the lack of maintenance, that could complicate things for you, and you may in fact not even have a claim at all. So you could possibly find that some of the loss is attributable to the lack of maintenance. You could find that part of the loss is related to the storms, in which case you will have a partial settlement of your claim, or it could be found that if your roof had been properly maintained, the loss would not have occurred at all. And in that instance, unfortunately, it might mean that your claim is completely not paid out.
Sure. And if I can come in there, Peter, quickly. I mean, we've also heard in some instances that some residents were warned to clear some communities, to not be in certain communities because of the anticipated adverse weather events. If it is found that you ignored that warning, could your insurance decide not to pay out on that basis?
A very good question, and in fact that is one of the most topical issues currently in the short-term insurance industry, where we find that, for want of a better word, let me just call it recklessness. There is usually a policy term that requires that the insured must take all reasonable care and precaution to either prevent, minimize loss or damage. And if it is found that one did not conduct oneself accordingly in that regard, the claim could be declined. And basically what that means is when you are given warnings like those, you need to heed them, and it is considered that if without, or rather despite having been given the warning, you continue to behave in the manner that you did previously, or you proceed without taking precautions, that could amount to recklessness, in which case your insurer may then decline the claim.
Something tells me you have a busy few months ahead. Thanks for your time this morning. Really do appreciate it. Peter Nkhuna is a Senior Assistant at the Ombudsman for Short-Term Insurance. Appreciate